The staunchly pro-Brexit politician launched into a tirade against George Osborne hours after the former Chancellor said he did not regret the Cameron government's decision not to create contingency plans in the event of a vote in favour of breaking up with Brussels. Mr. Osborne argued any Brexit plan produced under his watch would be met with a dissent of Brexiteers and be dismissed. But Nigel Farage rejected his statement, saying his line of action was a sign of his and former PM David Cameron's sheer arrogance. Mr. Farage said, "I say this to you, George Osborne, perhaps the most maligned political leader in the 20th century is Neville Chamberlain, because he came back from Munich waving his piece of paper talking about peace in our time. But you know what? We had no Brexit plans." George Osborne reveals this is why government refused to prepare Brexit. News. Nigel Farage said Osborne's statement was a sign of sheer arrogance. In the next year or so, the one thing the Chamberlain government did was to start to prepare for war. To start producing Spitfires and Hurricanes in much bigger numbers. Not because they wanted war, they hoped they had avoided it. But they did start to prepare for it. Mr. Farage continued the argument that Osborne and Cameron didn't think it was necessary to prepare a Brexit plan because Boris and Jacob Rees-Mogg would disagree with it. Frankly, I think they completely not just skirt their responsibilities but also showed their sheer arrogance in believing they would win. The British politician also suggested that failing to produce Brexit contingency plans could be at the heart of the struggle faced by the May government and Brexit Secretary David Davis during Brexit negotiations with the European Union. Speaking during his daily LBC show, Mr. Farage added, "There are many that would say that perhaps one of the reasons the government is constantly playing catch-up is that none of that work was done during the referendum itself." Although his defense of that position was frankly pretty pathetic. Nigel Farage, and I thought his defense of that position was frankly pretty pathetic. Mr. Osborne argued that it would have been extraordinary for a pro-EU government to prepare to leave the bloc. The former MP said, "I think it would have been extraordinary for a government that wanted to stay in the EU to plan for departure. Indeed, any plan we came up with, which probably would have concluded in favour of staying in the single market, staying in the Union, would have been bitterly contested by those who had just won the referendum."